Welcome to Sh Matters Podcast, where we have unfiltered conversations about the sh that really matters.
Welcome to Shit Matters Podcast. I'm your co-host, DeMikael Burris, alongside my brothers Brandon, Josh, and Kenny. Special guest today with us, Mr. Jason Hill.
Yo.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. How you doing?
What's going on, fellas?
What's going on? Josh, how you doing?
Going good, man. Going good.
Doing good. What kind of water is that? Is that Listerine or something?
God damn.
Yeah. What you got going on?
Come on, man. You never had this?
No.
We had to let go of Fiji, man. They didn't reach out on any sponsors, man. So I had to switch it up. We're giving them another shot.
What is that for real? What is that?
It's like Wakia. You never heard of it?
No.
That's that Boost Mobile brand. You got that.
That's like water.
It's better than Fiji, man. You gotta try it out.
I might try it out. Wakia water. All right, Kenny, how you doing, brother? You good?
Good. Living, fellas.
So you in Fort Lauderdale right now?
Yeah, I'm down here in Southeast Florida, kicking it for a couple days for work. You know, slumming it down in Fort Lauderdale. But
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
I love Fort Lauderdale. Brandon, you good?
Well, you're good, man. You're doing good.
To the moon, baby. To the moon. We're gonna ride. Jason, my brother, how you doing, man? It's good seeing you.
I'm lovely.
You cut the beard off. You kind of threw me. Last time I saw you, you had the beard with the grays.
Yeah. You know, I gotta get people to jump back. Like, what happened?
So, context. I've known Jason. What the hell going on since 2010? No,
it's
right? So,
a decade.
Yeah.
Yep. Or no, longer. It's
15 years, bro.
Yeah.
15 years. So he and I played football together in college. So our lives first intertwined, and we have been brothers ever since, man. But this guy means a lot to a lot of people. But wanted to bring him on, his journey and story, but also just his ability to communicate effectively and share things I think could be impactful to you all who may be listening as well. And so hopefully you guys follow along with us. Jason, please feel free to share as much as you want to share. It may get a little deeper. I don't want to intrude on a lot of your story, but if you're comfortable, we can get as deep as you want to get. So let's start off by you just telling everybody who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I'll just say I appreciate the invite to be on the podcast. I've listened to an episode or two, and you guys are always in sync and ask extremely good questions, take care of the guests on the show, and I love what you're doing. So first, just want to give you a shout out, say thank you, keep doing what you're doing. I said we've known each other for a decade, but my memory has been off since 2020 when the world changed a little bit. But it's been 14, 15 years. I'm originally from Hickory, North Carolina. I grew up splitting time between there in New York, and so got a taste of the Northeast and the Southeast growing up, which I think greatly influenced my trajectory in life. I'm the youngest of four, and so I live a completely different life than my other siblings and a lot of my other family members. So I'm a first generation college student. DeMike, we played ball together for 4 years. You used to be skinnier than me. Now you're bigger than me. I still have pictures. I'm gonna send them to everybody.
Oh yeah, please do.
We're gonna try to cut that part out.
He didn't tell y'all. Holding out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nah, Jason be cotton diesel back in the day.
Yeah.
Boy had muscles popping out of his body.
What position? What position?
Safety. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I only run now. I run and do yoga, so we'll get to that.
No, this is kept runs. He does like marathons and stuff. It's insane. What's the longest you ran?
Probably marathon distance. The last 26 miles I ran was October 5th is like the day the morning I drove from Charlotte, North Carolina to Denver. I ran 26 miles in the morning, hopped in the car. And so about 3 days ago, I started another 45-day program. The program I was doing before was like 3 months. And so I did like a 7-mile hill run today, and then went to like a hot power yoga class, and my long run on Sunday is 20 miles. So it's a fast ramp for me. I'm just trying to stay healthy through it.
Good for you. So let me throw this out there since we're recording this. Cope, I'll give you $1,000 if you go out and run a marathon tomorrow. $1,000.
Bro, he said 26 miles. He said 26 miles like it was a mile.
Yeah.
No, he ran that and then drove a car for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
I got this little Peloton right here. I do 30 minutes. I feel like I'm dying.
That's all you need.
For real.
Yeah.
Any more? You good? You got more?
Me? Yeah. So yeah, we went to college together. We also worked together. My first job, your first job, out of undergrad, in recruiting. I did that for a few months, and I quickly got out of the game. You're still in the game, which is amazing for you and your family. But I got a call, and kind of this my call will kind of continue to follow me through the story. I wasn't planning on working in higher education, and I was afraid to leave what I was doing because I saw kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. If I just kept plugging along with what I was doing in recruiting, there was some good rewards there. But like many other decisions after that decision, I leaned into fear. That was my decision. And so I started working in higher education. I went back to our alma mater. Then I went down to Greensboro, North Carolina, worked there for a few years. And then a few other things happened. But then my next like big fear moment was in 2018 when I decided to move out to the state of Wyoming. I was supposed to be there for 3 months to take a fellowship opportunity to work in the outdoor industry. And I, sold all my stuff, and I tried to Google the place I was going. I only found one picture, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I was afraid, and I was like, okay, I'm going to lean into this. And so, I still remember it like it was yesterday. My flight, from Chicago to Denver to Wyoming was all through snowstorms. I landed in Wyoming, and it was just like a whiteout in February. And it reminded me of the television show Fargo, where it's like you can't see anything. It's just like flat. And it was quiet, and it was quiet. That was the biggest thing. It was quiet. And so not like the city in the East Coast. And I landed in the town next to the town I had to go, which was like a 40-minute drive. And this shuttle took us. And every time a tractor trailer or 18-wheeler passed us, it blew snow on the windshield wipers, and only one windshield wiper was working. And so the driver had to get out and knock the window off. And it was just like, what am I doing? I got into this town. I met a good friend who's from Connecticut, but he had just moved out from the Bay Area at the time. He had reached out to me. He was like, yo, I hear you're coming in town. So I went to dinner with them that night, and I stayed for 3.5 years. And so a lot happened in between that. And yeah. So I'm going to stop there, though. Yeah.
Leaning into that fear.
Absolutely.
That's a hard thing to do. We've already discussed it before. We discussed the concept of that before, of leaning into that fear, embracing the fear. This quote I read recently. It said, in every adversity, there's an opportunity. Right? And so I think we've all can relate to that piece, but leaning to that fear. So let's start there. So leaning into that fear, where did that come from for you? That ideology, that mindset to embrace the unknown.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it came from. I'm about to make something up because I'm like, I don't know where it came from. I think it came from from growing up, and actually like always having to, and from an early age, directing my own decisions. And at a time when, I was like out of school and the decisions were on me to make right ones. I found myself at times making a safe decision, and a safe decision, provided a lot of stability for me that I was seeking at different parts of my life, and making those safe decisions, and also felt like I wasn't making the honest and true decisions for me to challenge myself. And so I'm a person who I think maybe because of that autonomy growing up, where I grew up the youngest of 4, but really I lived in a lot of different households, and I made a lot of different decisions. I chose if I wanted to go to school or not. I chose to continue to play football and all these things when a lot of adversity was right in front of me. And so really, I think those like early foundational moments in which I was able to choose, and I chose like pretty stable, like fear or courage opportunities. When it was time for me to say like, okay, I want to choose to step outside of what I know completely. It just felt like the right thing for me to do, and to really kind of lean into saying like, I felt like I could trust myself to work out of the consequences, whatever those consequences came up. And so that was just like a big moment to say like, I got this. All the consequences may not be good, and some of the consequences may be good. And whatever they are, I have the skills, I have the capacity to work out of those and work through those and work to those. And so I think that permission was really the turning key for me to making that decision.
What was the most difficult part about leaving everything that you knew from the East Coast and going out West? Because Photop, he's left, hometown areas. DeMikael, you've left areas. I've left. The only one that's homegrown is Mr. Copeland up there that's stayed in Eastern Pennsylvania. But what's been what was that decision-making process like, or what were some of the biggest fears for you at the time?
Yeah, so I grew up without a lot of stability, and I think for the first time I was kind of organizing some stability in my life from working a few years. And so like I at that time didn't have like a ton of savings. I had enough to buy me a plane ticket. I had enough for a few months and things of that nature. But I think leaving maybe the progress and the process that I was already in was scary for me. And because like I said, I was supposed to be there for 3 months. And I was intentionally saying like, okay, after these 3 months, my idea was I'm going to make it up to the Pacific Northwest and like the Seattle or Oregon area. I will figure it out. I didn't have a car, it's like, and so I like had my backpack. I had like 2 bags. And so I think that willingness to say like, I'm going to do this and I have no plan to returning to this safety, that was probably part of that.
Isn't it amazing how timelines always work out? I thought the same thing about Charlotte. I was like, I'm going to move to Charlotte 2 years, 3 years, move my ass right back to Philly. But it didn't work out that way, right? I mean, it's not on our schedule whatsoever.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Serendipity in it.
Yeah.
I know you said that you went through a lot of adversity and you're a lot different than your siblings. Mm-hmm. But what did you have a mentor that kind of guided you? Like, did you have a teacher? Did you have a coach? Did you have someone in your corner that was kind of saying, hey, Jason, like, go this way instead of going the other way?
Yeah, I think I had those mentors, those teachers available to me right at the right time. And so like I played sports, and so I think sports was a big connector for me. and gave me access to families and friends who had a little bit more, support, and was like able to, invite me over to their house and homes and have family meals for them and things of that nature, where like for me, that wasn't a thing in my family. It's like a lot of people in my family have been impacted by incarceration. And so I kind of grew up in some ways like splitting time between different households because of that reason, and because of just like trying to figure out like, okay, who can I live with next? I missed a lot of school growing up, and every stage, I just had at least like one teacher who saw potential in me, one coach who saw potential in me, one teammate's family who wanted to take me in. And so that was enough for me to just like continue to work my way around until I got into high school. And when I got into high school, well, let me back up. So living in New York in 7th grade, and it was just me and my mom, we got evicted from the house we were staying at. And so I like had a backpack and took a Greyhound bus back to the Carolinas, lived on the floor of my grandmother's house for 2 years. And I had another grandmother that lived a few houses down the same street. And I was able who worked a 3rd shift factory job. And so I like moved into that house my freshman year of high school. The day before school started, I broke my leg playing football. And so I had to have surgery. I have a plate in my fibula, plate and 7 screws. And so that kind of like was a setback. And I got cleared to play basketball the day after tryouts started. And I, played JV basketball and was able to eventually move into the different household and, play basketball and kind of was integrated back into the sports scene my freshman and sophomore year. My sophomore year, my dad had was shot and paralyzed from the chest down, and I had not lived with him, but he eventually like made it out of the hospital, and he came into the household where I was living at his mom's house, and I was like tasked to help take care of him, and that was a very difficult time for me as a teenager. Excuse me, who had a lot of complicated family dynamics. And again, it was just people who I met through athletics who kind of took me in and kind of helped me through that next 2 years of my high school career, which were pretty wild. I did the bare minimum, and luckily enough, through serendipity, a coach who coached in college, eventually I came and coached in my high school. Because I broke my leg in freshman year, I did not play football again until my junior year. But he was like, hey, you're athletic enough to, play somewhere at the next level. And so he started taking me around to different camps and things like that. And so kind of just like, I'm like telling these stories because it's just like always enough people to get me to that next stage. And so when I really left, graduated high school, the day after graduated high school, another uncle who had been in prison all of my life had gotten out of jail, and my room that I was staying at was given to him. So I was like effectively didn't have a place in the family home. And so when I went to college, I met DeMikael, I met all these other people. I didn't really come back, only not because I was like running away from anything, but because it was like literally my new home. And so, so sports and athletics and other things continue to propel me to continue to allow me to move forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Jason. Obviously, from what you said, you're forced to mature and grow up a lot faster than other people your age, even us, that the stuff we went through. So if you had to pick kind of one lesson or the best lesson you learned, obviously through that adversity of having to mature at a rapid rate and again, go through what you've gone through. But one lesson that is attributed to kind of the success that you have today, what would you say that would be?
I would say an early lesson of integrity. Like there were many opportunities to not do the right thing, and I honestly like didn't do everything I needed at every time. And there are times I cut corners, and times where I was like a teenager and like went out and did whatever else, and I was still so committed to aligning myself in a way that felt like I was operating from a place of integrity, from a place that I knew was right and wrong. And I think that like being able to stay committed to that part of myself, and I would say that a person who instilled that in me is my godfather, who I knew in New York. But I think DeMikael and I talked this past summer, and I use the word integrity in our conversation because it is for me a true through line, where it's like through adversity, through a lot of different circumstances, I could have, and people choose to alleviate stress, to alleviate challenge, and all of those things. But for me, because I know that there are other things, other options, other opportunities that I can also foresee, even though it will be hard. Operating from a place of integrity means that I stay committed to those things and committed to me pursuing what it is I think I can do.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge. I would say that's relevant to everybody right now, as far as obviously you learn at a young age, but I feel like people in their 20s and 30s still have trouble. I know I personally had trouble kind of staying true to the decisions that I wanted to make myself, but maybe it was a couple of friends or someone at work that was going a different way. And, you kind of fall into that, following suit because you think it's going to get you to where you need to go. And then you realize you get a gut feeling, essentially, which I'm sure you went through as well, of like, hey, this doesn't feel right. And I think that's something that people struggle with on a daily basis still.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I preach that, and I'm like, and yeah, it is a daily process, right? It's why I run the 26 miles. It's why I go to yoga. It's like, it is that, like, that training, that intentionality, that mindfulness for me.
It's awesome.
I'm gonna say it's resilience too. You're talking a lot about integrity, but I mean, you just threw like a lot of things at us, that you were going through as a child. I'm thinking, wow, you in all seriousness, going through all that and having the resilience and connecting that to even, a marathon or something like that, right? I think it's all connected for your past experiences, right? And what you've been through and been able to get through, right? So that's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, kudos. It's that's we love to have people like you on the podcast to spread the word, right? It gives people hope at the end of the day, right? No matter what you go through, there's brighter days, or you stay resilient on things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say that playing football, playing team sports provided a lot of leadership foundation. And when we were in college, I was a captain for 2 years, but I would say the endurance side of sports provides a completely different relationship to resilience, as you're mentioned, that I have learned in my adult life, that I wish I would have known growing up. But it's like, yes, I was operating from a place of resilience, and I think that like intentionality of like leaning into something, to the practice of putting one foot after another for hours, or swimming, or whatever, biking, whatever it may be, like that is for sure a different training that can and does cross over to other aspects of life.
Totally agree.
No, so one, thank you for sharing a little bit of your story as well. I think you said it's a choice, right? You have siblings who were in the same environment you were in, and they did not make the same choices you made. And I think we all have people in our family who we can point to as very similar to that. It's a choice you made, but you also were blessed to have folks around you who encourage you to also choose the path as well. And so that's always a blessing to say that you have that, and hopefully you're being that for other people as well, and you have an opportunity to be so. And so we move on, go through Emory, had that experience, made lifelong friends, can't hire everybody, love them boys.
What's up?
What's up? Yeah. And even in that stage of life, you had families who pulled you in, loved on you, gave you somewhere that you can feel stability, love, and support. I think that part goes unnoticed a lot. I think a lot of people, we live so much in our own worlds. We have no idea how much we can be impactful to other people by just showing love. And a lot of folks, and a lot of folks don't mean to do it in a mean way. They just so focused on self.
Mm-hmm.
That's just human nature. But when you really love on somebody, you have no idea how much you can change that person's life, and in doing so, change other people's lives as well. Because that one life was changed, and your life was changed. You've changed my life also. So I'm glad you chose to continue to live on integrity in high school.
Oh.
So you could come to Emory.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you and be jealous of your 9-pack.
I still got
it. Like Xerxes.
How was before we move on to the current chapter of your life, Jason? How was DeMikael in football? This is a safe space. How was he on the football field?
well, look, DeMike, we met. I don't even know the first time we met. But I mentioned before that he was this like super skinny kid, but had such a amazing personality that I think is reflective of the work he's done till this day. And one thing from the start that I noticed about DeMike on the field was that he had like some real quickness. He had a lot of agility, and he was hungry for the ball as a corner. And just like kind of wanted to get into the game. And so I think that like those are my first impressions of DeMike. And I, when we were in college, I was kind of like his big brother. And I'll say now, just like, you look like you're my big brother now. I'm from, but just, like I keep this guy out of trouble. But yeah, he was smooth on the field. Very hungry, agile, athletic, and smart with it. He cared about the game. He loved the game. I think in a lot of our group texts with a lot of the other guys, they're always talking about football, and I rarely chime in, but they're always DeMike's one of the leaders, the instigators of those conversations.
You could tell us the truth when we stop recording.
All right. Pause real quick.
I wasn't that skinny. I was 185 pounds. 185.
So what happened was, yeah. And I'll just say, and DeMike, like you meant a lot to me, and a lot of the guys who you mentioned before meant a lot to me in those families. One thing I did not mention was that in my senior year of college, first my sophomore year in college, I had a fracture my right index finger. Played a season, rest of the season with a club on my hand. My senior year, I had a compound tibia fibula fracture. So I have a rod down my right shin now, and so it's like all of those things were self-inflicted, but part of that adversity, but part of the love in which I found through people, and even through DeMike and his family, through Ross Ellis and his family, and Kyle and his family. So yeah, just want to give that shout out.
So I will say that accident, injury was kind of disgusting. So we were playing Hampton City, if I recall correctly. It was City.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Homecoming. Yep.
We on the field. I'm on the opposite side of him, and when he comes down, I wasn't over there yet, but I saw the reaction of the players. I'm like, what the hell going on? And I go over there, and this man, his whole damn leg is like, what? It threw me off. But even through that, though, like the ability to rehab through that, maneuver through that, and that puts you through some things mentally and emotionally as well.
Mm-hmm.
To climb through. Get back to, and you still excel. You push through adversity, you push through the hard times, and you still were that loving, joyful individual you are now. I think a lot. I keep going back because a lot of folks don't know what people really have gone through in life. They have no idea what you've gone through unless you tell them. They see you at the Harvard, they see you've done all these different things. You've been in Asia, you've been in Thailand. They have no idea your backstory and the shit you've been through that have made you who you are. And I think that's the part that I think is the beauty of it. What you've gone through has made you who you are. Mm-hmm. I doubt you want to go through it again. Maybe you would have. Who knows? Until you are. Like I can't recall if we had a talk before with us three about this before, about if the different things we've gone through in life that were negative, and if we want to do it again, I think sometimes those things were necessary to get us to where we are now, mentally, and learning how to handle things differently. If we didn't go, I know for a fact, if I didn't go through certain things in my earlier years, I would not have the capacity that I have now. And so, yeah, don't. And I think certain things in life it sucks, but I think sometimes we need it. And certain people who have the ability to deal with it, then have the ability to pass it on to other folks so they can deal with it as well. So we don't want to skip over. But speaking of Harvard, all right, went to Harvard, you had this big, this mindset that it'd be a great experience, which it started off that way, and then things transpired and happened. But how? A lot of folks can't say they're Harvard grads. How'd you get from Wyoming to Minnesota?
Yeah.
You were there for a little while, Minneapolis, doing stuff there, while dealing with a tumultuous relationship as well. Like, you know, that part can't go without being stated, because another part of stuff that was kind of tugging on you as well. You ended up in Harvard with that experience. Walk us through that a little bit from Minnesota, to Harvard.
Yeah. Well, I'll be quick on this because I know I can be long-winded but I think this is an important part. So like when I went to Wyoming, I was working in the outdoor industry. I actually started working in healthcare right before COVID started. And so I worked in healthcare throughout COVID, worked in a urgent care triage unit as an EMT. And that was like a whole experience in itself, in terms of kind of just like working in the front line and not getting a break or a day off until months into the pandemic, and just like finally sitting back and like, what in the hell just happened? So I think that like that was a big part of then moving to Minnesota, where I was like working at the university there, studying public health in grad school as well. Going from Minnesota to Massachusetts, what was a serendipity moment. I was traveling I was in Istanbul, Turkey, and I was talking to a friend maybe last week who had food poisoning, and I said, you know what, food poisoning changed my life, because I was in Istanbul. I don't know where I was before Istanbul, but I was able to travel for a few months at a time, and I had like bought a sausage roll. I brought 2 of them. And I looked at them. I said, these are going to make me sick. And I was so hungry. I just ate it. 20 minutes in, I knew something was wrong. I think that was like the closest I've been to feeling like I was going to die from food poisoning or food or anything like that. But through that process, I found, I call these my like infamous Google searches, where I'll just say like, I'm a very curious person. I'm like, I want to learn something about this, or like I follow the next train of thought. And so it kind of led me back down to process where I was Googling, found something called UX design, user experience design. And I had done some things with some like design business model generation or something like that in the past, and had like learned some design thinking skills and facilitate some workshops. But I was like, okay, my public health graduate program was like really boring to me. The political process, the policy process is a little too slow for me. I like to see results. And this like, framework of UX design was like really exciting because I was like, oh, I get to talk to people. I get to, create something and see it come to fruition within minutes, and blah, 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 blah. And so I literally like having food poisoning, supposed to take a flight in 3 days, was like trying to figure out like, how do I keep learning about this? How do I kind of keep this process, this train going? And so long story short, once I got back to the US, I restarted work in person. I was able to take a lot of those skills and design thinking skills and transfer them into the workplace. I was leading some creative projects, marketing projects, and blah, blah, blah from this like new skill set. And I just like simply wanted to be able to do that in an environment with people who I felt could be a little bit more agile than I found in that higher ed space. And so, so like, I was like, okay, I'll apply to this program at Harvard. For some reason, I had always thought I would go to Harvard. I don't know why, but I applied and I had told someone, they were like, "You think you're going to get to Harvard?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I got in, but I was like really apprehensive because I was already in a health policy graduate program. I was like, I don't want to make another costly mistake. And so I went and toured there a few months later, and that like single experience really changed my perspective, because it was just like a lot of people from all over the world who was there, who had a lot of energy. There was a lot of synergy happening, a lot of people who had already done a lot of creative and impactful things, who were running businesses in other countries or part of other governments and blah, 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 blah. And so, so that was like another moment for me in which I had to then like lean into this like one, figuring out, but this like two, fear of saying like, I need to, in order to do this, I need to take a year off of work, and I need to basically like throw all of my savings into what I'm going to do if I'm going to do it. And so I got scholarships and all that. And it's like the cost of living in Cambridge, Massachusetts is not cheap. I think Boston last year surpassed the Bay Area. And so it's just kind of like this process of saying like, okay, I'm going to do all this. And I like still had a deficit. And so I knew that at some point, through my calculations, that I was going to have to be like working double time to, do this like 2-year master's program in a single year at this like very high, prestigious and demanding institution. It was just like this like gamble, this like I was kind of in that process of saying, okay, I'm going to step in this fear. I'm going to take a gamble. And so that's how I got there. I'm going to pause because a lot. Once I was there.
I mean, you're talking to two sales guy, a gym owner, and a recruiter. So a lot of that was like going over our head. What was the name of the program at Harvard?
So it was in their graduate school of education, and the program itself was called Learning, Design, Innovation, and Technology. I was drawn to it because a lot of like the faculty was working with like Sesame Street and had, for years developed the programming to launch that, and for some other platforms like Coursera or had a lot of connections to Google and Amazon, blah, 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 blah. And so I think like for me, this idea of saying like I wanted to lead more of like high tech projects and it was like I'm going to be surrounded by a lot of smart people to do that was the draw for me.
That's awesome.
You're there. Yeah. While you're there, you experienced a lot of good experiences. You also experienced a lot of bad experiences, different things, that kind of stuff. That overall experience, did it end up being what you thought it would be?
No. Look, that was a simple no.
In what respect?
So it's like I went to kind of like up my game to be productive and to move to the next level. And I like threw a ton of resources. I threw all of my resources basically into it. And so, and as DeMikael mentioned, it's like I was also going through some relationship things, and so I was like sacrificing all parts of myself for this like dream or for this idea. And I would say like it started out for sure with a lot of good energy, synergy. Like a lot of people were learning, and we still learn. But I was like learning from professors who led and who lead efforts in refugee camps, in any refugee camp in the world, you name it, they're there. Or who, have connections to whatever project or business and blah, blah, blah. And so like learning from these people started, and being in a community with these people, it really started out strong. And I even like started a podcast where I was helping other people like connect to people who they would not have met otherwise, because everything was going so fast and there were so many people there, and it was only a year if you're full time. And the big change that disrupted the flow of all that was the war in the Middle East. And so, like thinking of, you have a highly global community, highly connected, all in one place, very old, very political, and a lot of people had direct connections on many sides of wars and things in the Middle East and other parts of the world. Like some of my best friends were Ukrainian and whatever else. And so it was just like another moment in which I was like in this community, and I felt the immediate impact of global unrest in this local context, and everyone else did too. And there was like a lot of spotlight. There was a lot of on the campus, on the people. There was a lot of political intimidation that was directly, connected to people who had resources to pull some strings and things of that nature. Who, So I'll just say that it created a very hostile environment, and me being the person who I am, and also like having worked in higher education and tech context before in the past, and being in care roles in which I am used to making sure people are okay. Like a lot of the unrest that was happening in our context kind of really diverted my attention, and where I was like trying to figure out like, okay, how do we even get people to feel safe enough to leave their house or to come to campus or to do whatever else. And it sounds pretty ridiculous to describe a place like Harvard like that, but that is exactly what it was, where people were afraid to go outside.
Crazy, yeah. No, that's tough. And you endured that as well. Josh, could you see yourself at Harvard, bro? Could you be a Crimson man? Is that what it's called, Jason?
Yeah.
Is that?
Look at that.
I mean, could I see myself there?
Nah, his ass is at UPenn. He's not leaving PA.
Could I see myself there? I mean, yeah, I don't think I could do my undergrad there. I could see myself in like the capacity that he went in like a grad program. I think when I was 18, I don't think I was mature enough to even think about Ivy League. Mm-hmm. But like in a graduate program, I think I could do. What about you?
No, definitely. So I funny enough, in high school, I got invited to a Harvard camp for football. Didn't have the grades to get into Harvard, but if I would have, I definitely would have went. Actually, my little cousin, he's on his little tour now. He got a few offers, and Harvard is one of them as well.
Okay,
for undergrad. But if
Isaiah's little brother goes to Harvard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For undergrad?
Yeah, for undergrad.
Yep.
Like what's the GPA required for undergrad? For Harvard?
I didn't even look into it.
4.8.
Yeah, so yeah. Once they saw my GPA, they was like, you can't go here.
I actually could see Photop there out of the four of us, excluding Jason. I could see Photop there the most.
Undergrad?
Undergrad?
Definitely not undergrad. I don't know. I couldn't go through any schooling, man. I just I feel like just from owning my own business now, it's like I feel like I've learned 100 million more things than I would have ever learned in school. Obviously, what Jason did was super specific to what he wanted to do. I'm talking about the generalities of education. You know, the gen ed courses that you have to take and stuff within college are just like, I think people are much better off getting out there and getting their hands dirty and learning it. Obviously, go to college if you want to and get it.
I agree.
So to me, I couldn't go back and just. It'd have to be something like that I'm passionate about, like Jason was, where it's like hey, this looks awesome and looks like something that I would love to do. And that I'm kind of similar, Jason, to that. I'm not really in love with the waiting game. Like if I'm doing something, I'm kind of one of those people that need to finish the task right after I start it. Like I can't sit down and go back to it the next day or something like that. So with that mentality, like I would love to, if I found something passionate about that, it could be like fitting in with my fast-paced lifestyle. Like I could definitely pursue something like that. But school in general, I am over with after, going through the business world.
I am schooled out.
Yep. What businesses? I think you said there are two people own two different businesses on here. Photop, you own one, and
No, Photop owns a business.
Got it.
And then everyone else is in sales or recruiting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
So Brandon owns a gym.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's what I missed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So he moved to open a franchise up in Nashville. Doing very well, by the way. Best vote
Look
in Nashville after year one. When's the new announcement come out? It'll come out in January?
Yeah, we'll find out in January.
It might get 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Look at that.
Talk heavy. Go ahead, man. Talk it.
And we all fly in Nashville and shooting a podcast in the gym.
Right at the gym. That's what it's going to be.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, for sure. I was just telling Gula we got to get it in person. So we'll do that. We'll be right at the gym.
It's only right. Brothers, listen. So we're going to, we got about 15 more minutes on this.
One thing I will say, Jason, just because doubling back on that story, obviously you threw all your resources in, it's shutting the door behind you. It's not having a plan B. And I think that's something that people, I know I've struggled with before, is like, I find something that I'm passionate about or something or I want to pursue. And, I dip my toes in it, but I don't, jump 2 feet in. Did you always have that mentality, or like, what would you be your best advice to somebody that's kind of like on the edge of wanting to pursue something, but afraid to shut that door behind them?
Yeah. I did not always have that mentality. And I started to cultivate that mentality by starting small. Like I started with small things that were scary and saying like, I'm going to do this. And then, continuing to build what those scary things were. And so I think that like that momentum and like already having that learned skill continue to carry me into that next stage. It's like when I finished in May, and I think DeMikael, you mentioned this earlier, is like I then went to Southeast Asia. I had no return ticket, and I was recording a travel podcast. I had no money. I was like, winging it, and I failed there. All right, and then I like came back to the U.S. and kind of like got some stability. Moved out to Denver maybe 2 months ago. And right now I'm in this process where I'm back at it again, where I'm not dipping my toes in anything. Like my last day at my current job at a university out here is on the 20th. It's in, 17 days. And I'm like actively starting to I've been working at gyms and other things. And I'm trying to launch some wellness platforms and, working from some of my like behind the scenes resources of understanding AI and understanding how to build platforms in that way. And so I think it continues to be this like learned skill that first is helpful to be cultivated in small ways and continuing to then increase like what those risks are. It's not for everyone, right? But a lot of the quotes that I read, and especially about people who fell and fell again and fell again, the one thing that remains important is that we get back up and we try again. Right.
You literally only have to be right one time.
Yep.
Right. You can try 100 different things and you can be right one time and you forget about the 100 things that you failed at.
Like that parlay.
And you know what?
Facts.
One day we're all going to be on our deathbed and we're not going to regret, the things that we try. We're going to regret the things that we didn't try. Right. So, just keep going, plugging away.
No one ever is on their deathbed and they talk about the car that they drove or the house that they have. Yeah. They talk about the experiences, the memories, and the people that they love.
Yes, sir.
I see that you do Like obviously you already told us you do marathons and you also do yoga. What got you into yoga? Obviously, because that's like dealing with your internal self, and what got you into that?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I appreciate every single one of your questions, all of your questions. I enjoyed this conversation. I funny enough, I kind of always was attracted to yoga and in kind of like in Tai Chi and martial arts as a kid. And so throughout my like life, I've tried to find ways to integrate and learn more. It was really when I moved out to Wyoming in 2018 that, and I think in 2019, I found a studio and I was able to practice consistently for a few years. And it was that process that I was like able to start rehabbing some of my past injuries that I mentioned in terms of like my compound fracture and whatever else. And I was at like physically finding new space of mobility in my body. And like mentally, it was also unlocking this idea of like, if I thought I was already operating at my full capacity or where I was at that point, but it was like now finding new ways in which I was like physically relating to the world. What other parts of my life am I thinking small? Am I thinking that I'm already doing enough, or I'm thinking that I've reached my limit? And so I think that like really sent me on this journey and I originally started a yoga teacher training program when I lived there, and it was during COVID. I had to stop for a few different reasons. And so what brought me back was this past year. Like this past year was hell. Like I gave like a good story of like, yeah, and I've done this and I'm like trying again. And there was like political turmoil and blah, 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 blah. But for me, like I had always connected my physical health and emotional health and whatever else to like being able to move. And I didn't have any of those pieces of wellness for myself because there was so much happening this past year, and I was going through a breakup, and so like when I was in Southeast Asia, I was like literally was at my rock bottom, and I was like sitting on the floor, and I said you need to get back onto your mat. You need to get back into your space, and you need to breathe. You need to, and so it was those tools that really kind of reinvigorated me to continue trying. And at that same time, I was like, the day I landed back in the US, I said, I started that marathon training program. And through those actions, through those decisions, choices, I started another yoga teacher training program through Core Power in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I met their director of programming. I met their VP of sales. And they like connected me to the folks in Denver. And I think a week ago, I finished the yoga teacher training program. So I'm a certified yoga instructor now, and I'm going to, audition for them. But, and so I'll say like those pieces of like realizing the importance, realizing the foundational, maybe like capacity that those tools gave me, brought me back to my mat, kept me on my mat. The community that I found through Core Power kind of helped me stay. And now I'm like in this like amazing community here in Denver, where it's like this organization that now has over 200 studios across the country, and it was started here. It's like I am, in all of these studios and with all of the OG instructors, and whatever else. And so yeah, that's been my journey, and that's where I'm currently at with yoga.
Gotcha. That's dope.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Any of y'all ever do yoga?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've done yoga, hot yoga as well.
Kenny.
No, I haven't done it. I don't know if I can make it through it. It looks kind of tough. It looks tough.
Nah, ain't no joke, man. Hot yoga is crazy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep. That looks like a tough workout right there. I don't know if I can make it through.
That's good though.
Yeah.
So two things for you, Jay.
Yep.
We can close this thing out. You and I you were in Asia. We had a dialogue, a few different ones, but one in that the state of emptiness and trying to discover again yourself, the mental piece of it. Right? And even getting back home, you still were. We met at Chick-fil-A and we talked about this as well.
Yep.
how you were now beginning to rediscover and find that peace again.
Mm-hmm.
That journey in itself, if you don't mind,
yeah,
tap into that a little bit.
Yeah, oof, yeah. So when I was in Southeast Asia, and I think it was, if I'm reflecting on it now, there had been for such a long time so many compounding things, so many compounding adversities, and like I didn't have the real opportunity to kind of sit with them, and at that same time of like real kind of feeling a lot of compounding adversities over the previous few years, from my intimate relationships, from not having savings, from at that point not having a job, and kind of like having a lot of financial instability. I was like, on my trip, I was like recording a podcast, and I was like I was working with cents of USD, which carried me for a few days at a time. And I was in a country where it's like I need a different country. I was like, I need to survive every single day, and a lot of the structures, a lot of social connections and things that I knew in the U.S. and would not have been a problem when I was there if a lot of those other dynamics were not at play. But from kind of just like all of like that perfect storm of losing and kind of having like feeling untethered is the word I'll use. I had mentioned like I was sitting on the floor I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, on the 17th floor of a building. And it was like literally the first time I was looking out the window, and I was thinking of, is this it? And I had never been in that place before in my life. And it was literally that catalyst that when I glossed over it, it brought me back to my mat. It brought me back to my wellness practices. It brought me back to all of these things. It's the catalyst. And when I mentioned integrity before, is why I have turned down jobs since I've been back in the US to come out to Denver. It's why I completed the yoga teacher training program, and it's why I'm even talking about yoga right now. So why I finished a mindfulness certification, and what I plan to continue to pursue moving forward. Because a lot of for me, like I have experienced a lot of adversity growing up, and I had always had resilience to do those, to make it through those things. And when I did not have, that resilience that I knew before, some very foundational and important skills and tools came to me, and like saved my life literally. And so that in many ways is like my mission right now, is to extend a lot of what that value is to other people. And so that's where I'm working from.
I fucking love you. I love you. All right. I do love you. I love it.
I love you too. Yeah. I love all y'all. I love all y'all.
The last question, this is one that Josh loves to ask as well. Josh, you can ask this question if you like.
The 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before I say that, I don't like, obviously you went through a lot in your life, right? And I think in your next phase of your life, you embracing everything that you went through, you embracing that resilience, I think you're going to be able to change a lot of lives, right? And it's a blessing that you didn't go forward with that plan and where you were at, because you have a bigger calling, right? You're going through everything that you're going through right now because you have a bigger purpose. So I want you need to embrace that though, and change those lives around you now. Like, right, you already know what you got to do. It's already in you. Now you just got to act on it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the question I always ask people is, in 5 years, where's Jason Hill?
I love that. Yeah. In 5 years, I am leading a transformation and getting many communities healthier, reinstilling a lot of like foundational skills and tools into kids and adults so that we're operating from our whole selves, our well selves, and not just going about our lives day to day. And so I am right now, in 5 years, I will be leading a company doing that.
That's a blessing.
I love it. Well, we're gonna capture that snippet and we're gonna replay it for when you come back in 5 years.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
I love it
For sure.
I love that. It says confidence as well. Well, hey, thank you again, Jay, for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
It's been a blessing
Cheers,
to hear.
fellas.
Hopefully, you guys are still listening. Hopefully, you are able to glean. That's my new favorite word. I like glean.
Yeah, for sure. You said that twice today. I
Glean
noticed
from this conversation, seriously. But as always, thank you all for listening. Like, share, and we will talk to you soon.
And Jason, where can people find you at?
Cheers.
Oh, yeah. I'm in Denver, Colorado right now. Is that what you mean?
Social media.
Social. Oh, I actually
you
on your next episode, I have not launched yet. January 2025. I will give you that answer, and you can give me a shout out on your next episode.
But if you want to stalk him, he's in Denver. If anyone wants
Pull it up.
You got to find it. Damn. All right, man. Hey, as always, thank you guys. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace.
Peace, guys.
That really matters.